When y'all gonna break this 50-year generational curse? Simple. When we stop fucking with y'all. Question asked and answered. When we stop fucking with y'all.
See, the gag with this little psyops is that they keep trying to push the narrative that black women are the face of single motherhood. That's absolutely incorrect. In fact, the new face of single motherhood is the white woman. Secondly, and this is the most important things, look at the way that the numbers is ran up for white women, single mothers, to biracial black children. Now, you see, this little ditty and this little psyops and control of narrative is for one purpose and one purpose only. It is to get black women to lower their standards and remain tethered to black men without any kind of standards, right? And you find that interesting because when they say things like this, it almost seems like they want you to develop standards, right? When they say pick better, XYZ. Let me tell you what it is. They want you to take it and shut the fuck up about. Stop complaining about the abuse. Stop complaining about the mistreatment. Beg him to remain in your life. You would think that they want you to have standards. No. What they are trying to do is to produce such a feeling of void, of insecurity inside the black woman that she is now running to get with a black man to settle as quickly as she can, whether it be for age or fear of aging or fear that she will not be capable of running a household. All of this is a manipulation. It is not for you to have higher standards. And we know they don't want us to have higher standards because they got a problem with us going to college and graduating. They got a problem with us being business oriented. They got a problem with us being able to traverse the matrix in ways that they can't. So they absolutely do not want us to higher our standards, okay, as a whole. Perhaps there are some unicorns. I always give credence to unicorns. But at the end of the day, the reality is what they want from us is to shut the fuck up and take it. And I'll give you another clue as to how I know it's the shut the fuck up and take it act. They consistently talk about the 1950s. The 1950s when women didn't have options. Because those options were tangible, they necessarily had to stay in their abusive, unhealthy relationships where grandpappy had children all over town. So they had to stay, even if they were disgruntled, even if they were unhappy, and then they would run to the church to cope with the fact of how miserable they were. Now it's the church is hurting, the men are hurting, and so what they want to do is they want to reproduce that artificial need within us to stay with them regardless of whether or not we are happy, healthy, and whole in these relationships. No, they want a fabricated delusion or delusional woman to stick with them regardless, right? And so they're reaching hard to try to get the intended mentality from us. It's a psyops, baby. It's psychological warfare. And so instead, since they know that they can't do it with money and they can't do it with us being barred out of opportunity, they do it with psychologically playing on what they feel our insecurities are. And that way, we will run to them and flock to them. However, be advised that many of them do not want you to have any standards whatsoever. They want you to shut the fuck up and take it. And that would also go along with them talking about you need to pick better, or making it like it was on you if you are a prey to some predatory male, or making it like it was on you. You didn't know the game. You literally have to have a PhD in pimpology by the time you're 13 to be able to really discern what kind of magnitude of ridiculousness these guys are doing just to get cheeks, energy, and supply from women. So that couldn't be it. That couldn't be it. They don't expect you to know the game. They don't want you to know the game. They want you to shut the fuck up and take it.
Hell yeah, they are. And they got mammies and pick-me's on the payroll. I have never in my life seen black men be so adamant about marriage and the nuclear family in all of my years. And it makes sense that when I was born in the 80s, that time had come and went simply because of the crack epidemic, which is a blip in black history that has nothing to do with the destruction of the nuclear family, right? Even though it's directly correlated. Okay, so ultimately, what we are seeing in society, it's not even relegated and isolated to black women anymore. It's everybody. Single motherhood, there has been no time in history where single motherhood has been higher. Now, as always, the men opted out, but they got to walk that shit back, right? They opted out. They didn't feel like they were getting along with the woman. And they have now so many of them in drones have to walk that shit back. Realize that the road that black men have been historically locked out of, one of the biggest ends to that road is through a woman. That's why you see Jay-Z with Beyonce, you'll see Sierra with Russell. It is through a woman, a black woman, indeed, will also help them in this nuclear family ideology. But it's really not the guys that I mentioned, but it's really based on this selfish agenda. The agenda is quite selfish and quite hedonistic, right? But you will notice that even in sports, they tell them, if you really want to get on your game, you need to get married. You get yourself a stable home, you get yourself a routine, you get yourself something, a foundation, something to be grounded and build from. They don't care how good you can bounce the ball. They don't care how good you can rock the mic. You want to get into these higher places, you have to look like a stable, rooted man. And many times you cannot do that without a woman. So with this whole flip of plenty of women from all different races and backgrounds opting to be single mothers, and then especially it being very considerable in the black community, you got to realize that brothers are realizing that they ain't gonna get no upward mobility unless they have a stable home. So that don't mean shit for women though. That don't mean shit for women. It really just means that you can get to have the status symbol of a husband, but that doesn't come with any intrinsic happiness or intrinsic love or intrinsic being treated right. You just get to be associated with a specific status, and that is the marital status. Plus, they got all this stuff coming out where black women are being told of their value indirectly. You see it everywhere. There's black women in the rap game now, which is highly misogynistic. Black women are being told about being the most educated demographic and a viable business resource in the black community. And everything looks like black women are the absolute shit. Now, ultimately, these men leave so that we can come crawling back and, down on bended knee, begging them to be with us and help us raise our children. What they don't want is for us to get so high up that we're unreachable to them. So they have to exploit our insecurities. They have to try to find something where they can latch onto to make us feel like we are void. There's a void somehow without them. Now, when somebody has to create an artificial need inside of you, when someone has to exploit the things that you feel low about to make themselves valuable in your life, you are really dealing with a fucking parasite at this point. You're dealing with a vampire, you're dealing with a parasite. You see what I'm saying? And then by them having mammies on the payroll and Pick Misha and them on the payroll, it's really like this stampede of negative energy and negative discourse around black women, not fixating their focus on the fact that we've overcome so many things, because that shit don't matter. They want us to pull it back down because they done stuck their foot in their mouths with their voluntarily, most of the time, leaving the relationship, leaving their children, right? They did it voluntarily. But now that they realize that this is going to lock them out of a lot of political progression, oh, they back on it again. And now all these talking heads with these mics lodged down their esophagus is using negging and abuse tactics to force black women to feel inadequate without black men. That ain't even fucking healthy. It's sick, really. So as I mentioned, the pimparchy rages on. So married, not married, single, got a man, got a boo. As long as at the core of our community's psyche is a pimp hierarchy mentality, that's just what it's going to be. And truthfully speaking, these are the same boys that were in school, that weren't paying attention, that had a flagrant disregard for rules. And then when they got to high school, all they were doing was being a little ladies' man or playing some sort of sport, etc., etc. And the unfortunate part is they didn't develop any real critical thinking skills. They continuously depict the lack of empathy for women. I mean, a woman can talk about being raped, a woman can talk about being essayed, and absolutely nothing but crickets. They don't even depict healthy leadership quality. So, I say all that to say the evidence is stacking towards hedonistic, narcissistic ambitions, and black women are just here to plug their holes and help them be a stepping stone. And who the fuck want to do that?